Hey guys, Lucas Metz here for YouTube or WordPress.com, wherever you're viewing this video. Thank you very much for the view, as always. I have a lot to talk about in my video today, so I want to get right to the point. Yesterday, I'm sure you heard about the Boston Marathon bombings, but if you didn't, I'll recap it for you quickly. 2 bombs went off at the end of the Boston Marathon. 3 or 4 people were killed, and it left over 100 people injured. I'm not sure of the exact number, so I'll just say 100 for now. I've seen a lot of positives come out of this. It's difficult to see the good in the world when things like this happen, but from a situation like this, you do see the good in other humans. People who finished the race after the explosion continued running and ran to the Boston hospital to give blood to the people that were injured and affected by the bomb, which is heroic. And I've seen over Twitter and over Facebook a lot of people sending their thoughts and their prayers to the people affected by this and their families. And even though it's not a direct help, it's always nice to know that there are people out there supporting others and that there are people who care about other people. The one thing that I have seen that kind of bothers me is that people are trying to blame organizations or specific individuals for what's happened yesterday. And as of right now, nobody is at fault. Well, obviously there are people who are at fault. We just don't know who they are yet. So, as of right now, it's wrong to blame a specific group of people without just reason or hard evidence. A lot of people have been pointing their fingers at Al-Qaeda, and they may be a terrible terrorist organization. You're being naive if you think that this was them. This is way too small scale. Look at what they've done in the past. They're responsible for 9/11, for hijacking planes and flying them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And there could have been more if the U.S. didn't act accordingly. So it doesn't make any sense for them to plant 2 small homemade bombs at the end of the Boston Marathon. This has nothing to do with them. This has something to do with one of the other lunatics that live in our world. There are plenty of people who are capable of this right here on our own continent, in North America, in Canada, in the US. A few examples of these are Luke Mandola, the man responsible for chopping up his boyfriend on the internet and then trying to get away with it because he was hungry for attention. Another example is James Holmes, the Aurora Batman shooter. That was just in the last year. And that just proves the point that there are hundreds of thousands of people in our own continent, in our own 2 countries, right here, that are perfectly capable of doing something like this. And sadly, there was even more going on yesterday than just the Boston bombings. I'm sure not a lot of you are aware of what else happened in the world yesterday. In Iraq, there were car bombings that were claimed by Al-Qaeda that killed 55 people, and that was 5 days before the first Iraqi election since the U.S. withdrew their troops in 2011. I've seen a lot of statuses and tweets about the fact that that's being ignored by the American media. And the first thing I want to say about the comparison between the Boston bombing and the car bombings in Iraq is that all people are equal. There's no one whose life is worth more than somebody else's. And if you think that way, I strongly disagree with you. We all share this world. All our lives are equal. But there is one dividing factor between us, and that has to do with where we live. Those of you who feel that it's unjust that the events in Iraq didn't get as much media coverage are totally right. It isn't fair. But you have to look at where we live. We're a world away from those people. The events that happen there aren't directly correlated to what's happening here. People that have been scoffing at the US and North America in general for freaking out over 3 or 4 people killed because there was a bomb that went off in Boston, I don't see how you can justify that in your own mind. In North America, we don't live under the constant threat of war and the constant threat of violence. We can wake up in the morning and feel safe. We're not afraid to go outside. We're not afraid to walk around. In Middle Eastern countries, this violence is a lot more common than it is here. Many of the countries are on no-fly lists and on restricted travel lists, and I've actually posted a link in the description of this video that will take you to the Passport Canada website, and you can take a look at why these places are restricted, why you can't go there. And if you look at Canada, if you look at the US and Canada are perfectly safe to travel to. Perfectly safe. Whereas if you try to travel to the Middle East, You're going to have to go through a lot more precautions. It's a constant war zone there. It really is. And it's very, very sad that those people who live there and are innocent have to go through that on a daily basis and have to fear for their own lives. Like, if a bomb goes off there, it doesn't affect us here. Although it's terrible and it's a tragedy whenever it happens, it doesn't affect us here. And that's why the American media gives more attention to things that are happening at home. The Boston bombings is something we don't see every day. A lot of countries in the Middle East and places like that live with that every day, and that's something that they have to cope with. It's not something we're familiar with here. Although violence is common on this side of the world as well, things aren't randomly blowing up on a daily basis. That's why it received more coverage. I feel strange arguing this topic because it isn't a discussion that should have to be had. People should understand that we live on this side of the world, so things that happen here are going to directly affect us more than something happening elsewhere. Had the bomb gone off today, guaranteed that CNN and Fox News, they would have covered the Iraq bombings. All loss of life is a tragedy regardless of where it happens. And it is sad that there are so many injustices around the world that aren't given proper media attention here. We tend to gravitate to the events that affect us closest to home, which isn't wrong. For people to say that the 3 to 4 people here aren't worth the same as 55 people dying somewhere else is sick. It's sick, and I'm really disgusted that I know people that say things like that. So I might have run over a little bit on time here, but there was a lot that I wanted to get covered. Thanks for watching, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. See you later.